Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am so excited to talk with you about planning today. Planning is something that I used to fight like it was tooth and nail. It was the worst thing that I could ever imagine doing in my life because it just didn't go so well. And what I am going to teach you today, what I have learned through life coaching, through the processes that I'm going to take you through, has given me so much life because it's enabled me to plan in a way that I want to show up. It's enabled me to plan in a way that I'm creating a life that I want to show up for, not something that I just before it even starts, I feel bad about. So I'm going to teach you that today. I can't wait. How this will work is I'm going to teach for 15 minutes. If you, as I'm teaching, if you have questions, use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, and then I'll open up the floor for more questions and live coaching. If you want to come on, I'll promote you as a panelist. Just raise your hand, use the raise hand button, and I'll bring you on. The beauty of you being here live today is that you get to ask these questions. So please add to the energy of it by asking questions and come on and get coached if you want. It's a lot of fun. So, planning. What happens when we plan? There are three big mistakes, and this is not all inclusive, but there are just three mistakes that I think a lot of us make when we plan that sort of derail the whole process. The first one is planning every second of every minute of every day. And what that does is it creates this energy of rushing. It creates this energy of urgency, of being behind, of like, and then that leads to burnout, right? I don't look forward in my future and hope that I live life like, it's not what I'm trying to create for myself, right? And so when I'm planning every minute of every day, that is what happens for me. And I know it happens for a lot of you too, because I do a lot of coaching on that, right? Burnout is coming from that place where I don't have any room to breathe. I'm overwhelmed by what my day holds. So one of the mistakes we're making is planning every moment. Planning, now I don't even have time to go to the bathroom because I'm going to be late for my next thing, right? So number two is the second mistake we make is we punish ourselves. We plan like we are an angry parent that is setting forth a consequence. And so it's like, oh, I can't believe you didn't get this done last week. I'm going to plan it here when I'd really rather be doing this, but I'm going to be doing that instead. And it's like this aggressive, like almost disappointment, this feeling of like, oh, like I've done it wrong before I've even started, right? And so the feelings that brings up is dread. Like, who wants to go face their angry parent? Who wants to like own up to the punishment? None of us do. My mom used to talk about having to go get her own switch for a spanking. Horrible. Like, anyway, you don't want to show up for that. You dread it. You avoid it is usually what happens, because then we have agency in our own lives. So like we tend to like procrastinate or avoid or not do the things that we are showing up from, like that disappointed in advance place. I'll get into this a little bit later, but this is what I realized my challenge was with planning. When I didn't show up for my plan, or when the plan didn't go well, the way I talked to myself was like that disappointed parent. And so I didn't want to plan something that I was going to mess up and then have that disappointment waiting for me. So that internal dialogue, I didn't even realize I was doing this to myself, but I was, and it created that dread and avoidance. So the third mistake that we make is thinking that the plan is actually going to solve all the problems in our life. So you think, oh, okay, I'm don't have control over these items, or I'm not making progress in these arenas, or, I need more organization in this way. I'm going to create a plan and it's going to be amazing, right? And it's going to solve all the things. So then if I map it out, I have this map and I'll have the map. But that's going to solve the desire for procrastination, the desire to avoid. That's going to solve all of the emotions that I'm feeling that cause me to not do the things. So the challenge with that is, it's not the plan. The plan can be beautiful. It can be so well laid out with free time, with all the things getting done. But if you don't show up for it, the plan doesn't actually solve anything. So if you're not addressing those disappointed parent thoughts, if you're not addressing those rushed, got to get it done, you're behind thoughts, then your plan is just going to create more of that, more of those negative emotions, not actually the result of getting the things done. So those are 3 mistakes. Okay, so what do we do about those? Part of it is we think that planning is something different than it is. We think that planning is controlling our time. Making a plan can create some agency in our time, but as we know, life happens, right? So do we have control? Nope, we just have a plan. We don't actually have control because car accidents happen. Other people's emotions happen. Life happens, right? We spill our coffee is a little thing. You just change your shirt, but you get into a car accident on the way to a very important meeting. Well, that's a whole different thing. That's derailing for more than just the hour, right? So we don't actually control life. We're just trying to create agency in that life. We think that it's organization, and it is. We are making decisions about what we're going to do in our life, but unless we are intentional about these decisions, we might spend a whole lot of time getting things done that are not really meaningful to us. So you go back and you look at your life, the big picture of it, and you're like, oh, I had clean clothes every week. Amazing. And that doesn't feel amazing, right? You look back on your year and you're like, I did a great bit of laundry and it doesn't feel good. But when you think, oh, I had this experience and I achieved this goal, or I did this thing, or I had this, I really worked on this relationship, then you feel way different, right? So if you're organizing things that aren't meaningful for you, it doesn't get you to actually the life that you're wanting to create. So we also think that it's a lack of freedom. If I have this schedule, then I got to follow it, and I want to be free and I want to be impulsive. But there is no freedom like free time that you've planned, and you know that you're absolutely free because you did all of your responsibilities already. If I've already gotten I work on this every day with my son getting ready for school. You got to brush your teeth. You got to get ready. You got to get dressed. You got to make up your bed. You got to have your breakfast eaten. Those are the things you've got to do in order to leave the house. Then you get to do the fun stuff. Then you get to draw something. You get to read. You get to do whatever the things you want to do. You don't get to do those first in your jammies, because then we're late, then we're behind, because obviously doing an art project is way more delicious than making your bed. So the freedom to do the art project comes when the responsibilities are done. And that's amazing. That feels really good because there's no monkey on your back like, oh, I'm having fun, but I still got to do this thing. So We think it's lack of freedom, but it really creates a new level of freedom. So when you think about these three things, when you think about control, if you think about planning as a control mechanism, you see yourself as like this overlord, which doesn't necessarily feel great. When you see it as just organization, you might see yourself as like a little nerd. You're like getting your stuff done and you're not having fun. But that's not true either. When you think of it as a lack of freedom, you see yourself as this jailer that I'm punishing, I'm suffering, I'm like, there's like this consequence result thing. And that's no fun either. That doesn't create the life that you're trying to create. That's not looking back going, that's the path I want, right? None of those are. I don't want to see myself as like the overlord or the like, tick, 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 I get things done. Or the jailer. Like, none of those are fun. That's not the person I want to be when I'm my best self, right? So what planning actually is? Planning actually is making decisions ahead of time. It's deciding what's important to me and then finding where I want to focus on it, when I'm going to focus on it, how that's going to fit into my life. When am I going to create the space for these amazing things that I want to do with my life when I'm becoming my best self, right? When you are only doing things in the moment, you're in your impulse brain. You're in the like, your survival brain takes over. It's like, oh, the survival brain is working on you seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. And so when I'm doing any of those, I'm not hitting big goals. I'm not working on a relationship. That doesn't sound fun. I'm doing just survival kind of stuff. And that's how years go by in survival mode, right? So, the other thing, and I already talked about this, you're creating true freedom because you know that you've gotten the things done you got to do so that you can really be impulsive and free in the moments that you know you're free. And then the last thing, and if you get nothing else, hear me right now and take out your pen and paper and write this down. Planning gives you the opportunity to build integrity with yourself. You can build trust with yourself. And this is one of those things I'm always talking about. What are the actual steps to loving myself? This is one of them. When you say you're going to do something and you know you're going to show up. How many people have had a person in your life where you're like, hey, I need you. And you're like, that person isn't going to show up. They're not going to show up. I need them. I'm telling them I need them. And I know they're not going to show up. How many of us have been that person for ourselves where you're like, I need you to show up. And then that survival brain kicks in and we don't. And so then our trust is broken and then you don't want to plan because then you're beating yourself up for how you didn't do it well last time. It happens, right? So the opportunity to build integrity and trust with yourself is how you move mountains. It is how you achieve big goals. It is how you are happy at the end of the day. It's how you love yourself. It is how the world opens up. So, how do we do this? What's the deal? Give me the stats, right? We've talked about how you want to feel. Let's talk about the action. So the number one thing that you can think about with creating a plan is connecting with the person who's already done it. Connecting with your future self, the person who's like, I want to do this because I think I'm going to feel this way when it's done. Connect with the future self who already did it and figure out how that person feels. Why are you doing the thing? Is it because you love the way clean clothes feel? Then wash your clothes, right? That's a priority. But if it's that you want to do something greater than what you have now, you want to create a life that is something a little bit different than what you've got right now, you got to look forward and figure out why that's important to you. And so if you want more time, if you want more money, if you want more connection with the people in your life, how will you feel when you have that? That's going to be the driver for where your priorities are. So your future self decides where your impact is in your time. It decides why you're showing up so that you can decide, what do I want to show up for that daily? Do I want to show up for that once a month, once a week? How does that fit into my actual life, which is a sun up to sundown kind of timeline? So here's the list of things to do. Number 1, you are going to brainstorm all the results you want at the end of your day or your week, however you're planning this. So what do I mean by result? A result is like something actually produced. In the example of the laundry, the clothes are actually clean and back in the drawer, right? If it is like something, me preparing for this class, the result is the piece of paper that has my notes on it. Yep, they're all handwritten. The result is the things I'm going to say in the class. So what is the result that you want to create? Because it's not just working on something. If I'm working on cleaning the house, I'm going to have a clean house. The things are going to be dusted. The floor is going to be clean. Those are easy little things, but what is it that you are creating? Is it lunch with someone you love? Amazing. You got to decide what day you're going to meet and what time and where you're going to go, right? Who's going to be making the food? Where are you going to get it, right? Those are just the details, but they are a part of it. How many of us have said, oh, let's get together? Do we get together? No, we don't. Hey, are you free on Friday? Yes. Then we make it happen. So number 1 is just brainstorm all the results you want to create. Number 2 is list the appointments you have. When are other people expecting your presence? I've got a dentist appointment here. I've got to take my child to the orthodontist there. I'm going to have lunch with my husband here. Other people are expecting my presence. I got to figure out my travel time to get there, and I've got to have that time blocked out. That's not free time. That's time I'm expected to be somewhere. So after you have your appointments listed, then you're going to figure out what are your available hours. I've got this chunk of time. I've got that chunk of time. And before I need to be here, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's half an hour, maybe it's 15 minutes. Who knows? You will find that out. So that's where we're creating time. We're finding those open blocks of time where we get to decide how we use them. So then number 4 is decide your free time. Where are you putting the time you're going to be free and spontaneous? Where is that going to happen? Then you don't have to plan what exactly you're doing, but when am I free to make whatever decisions I want? Write that down. Plan it. Is it 15 minutes a day? Is it an hour? Is it a chunk of time to go on a hike? Is it a daily dog walk? What is it? What is your free time? What is the time where you're going to do things where it doesn't matter what you actually do? You're just doing something you love, whether it's reading, napping, whatever. So now you look after you've got that planned. So you've got your appointments, you note the open spaces, you're putting in free time, whatever you want that to look like. Now you are putting the results that you want into your chunks of time. So at some point, I missed this. You have to figure out how long each of those little things are going to take. And listen, you don't so say I'm going to prepare for this class. The first time I prepared for a class, I had to just figure it out. I had to just say, I'm going to set aside an hour to do that. And maybe it takes an hour, maybe it takes 40 minutes. Who cares? That's the chunk of time. But you just guess And then as you keep doing this, you'll get better at it. So you're going to get assigned times to the items, guesses. Don't get crazy about it. It doesn't matter if you do it wrong. You'll learn from it, right? Don't be afraid to make a mistake. So assign times and then assign an order of operations. What's most important to you? If I lay my head on the pillow and this isn't done, I'm going to not be pleased with my day. That's a high priority. If this would be really nice, but I don't really care, then that's a low priority. Start with your high priority, whether they're fun or not. If it is meaningful to you, put that in there first. So then you're putting those blocks in. So that's the process. I'm going to go over that one more time. You're going to brainstorm. You're going to list your appointments. You're going to note your available hours. Where's the time where you're putting your free time in your results? What's available to you? You're going to decide your free time. You're going to decide, I'm putting this in together, you're going to prioritize what's most important and how long it takes. And then you're going to schedule that into those blocks of time. Now, you may be someone who needs to schedule by the hour. Like, I have to meet people at certain amounts at certain times. At 10 o'clock, I've got a client waiting for me. So it is important to me to have times. For some of you, if you have a flexible schedule, it's not that important, right? You can just say, after I do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to accomplish this first. I'm going to spend about an hour on it, and then I'm going to accomplish this next. So it doesn't have to be so rigid if you want a little more fluidity. But here's the next part. You got to plan for life to happen. You cannot create so strict of a plan that you're going to be destroyed if somebody needs you or a couple minutes over in this or behind in that. Create the clarity that, like, okay, I'm going to give myself an hour for that. I'm only going to give myself an hour for that. But if something happens and the dog pukes and I got to clean that up, I'm not going to be destroyed because I only have 50 minutes for that, right? So don't create so much rigidity that you're destroyed when life happens. Show up for your time like you're showing up for the dentist. If you don't show up for that dentist, you got to wait 6 more months. I mean, those suckers are packed with their schedule. I can't just slide into a dentist appointment. Not at my dentist anyway. I hope yours is more flexible. Mine is not. If I'm sick and miss my appointment, I'm months getting another one. So show up like this is your opportunity to do the thing. That's where you build the integrity. And here's the last part. Expect not to want to do it. When it's time to show up, you're not going to want to. It's life. That's where you key into that future self who's already done it, who's loving how they feel because it's done. And do it anyway. Not all of life is you're not delighted at every task you're going to do in every moment of your day. That's okay. Who cares? That's fine. Because when you have the thing done and you've connected to how you feel when you're there, that's going to be delightful, right? So expect to not want to do it and just decide that has no bearing. You're going to do it anyway. You're going to show up for yourself. You know why? Because you're worth it. Because you are your best partner. You are the person who's saving you. You are the person who's got your back. You got it. So the last part, plan for a time to review how you did and learn from it and celebrate the things that went well. Tell me what questions you have. That was more than 15 minutes of teaching. I get a little excited about this topic. So tell me what questions you have about any of it, about how you're feeling about planning. And maybe just, if you don't have a question yet, just tell me that. What emotion do you feel when you think about planning your day or your week? Stress. Yeah, because you're probably that jailer or the parent, or you're trying to get it all done and you're rushed. Nervous because, okay, maybe you're the person who is trying to please, right? You're trying to please yourself. You're trying to do it right. Oh, I can so connect to that because I always wanted to do it right. I didn't want to cause any challenges. I didn't want to ripple I didn't want to rock the boat. So nervous, like I want to do it right. Yes, me too. What questions do you have about planning? Where do you get kind of a hiccup in the process? Prioritizing. Okay, so somebody says, I don't know how to, I feel like everything's important. And okay, so here's where you go to look at when you think about the things that are done. Are they important for you? Are they important for someone else? Are they important? Are they like taking you to the next level of your life? When you think about, if you dream, I have all the money in the world, I have all the time in the world. How do I spend my day? What is important to me if I'm not like grinding for the dollar, or if I'm not like taking care of all the other people and I'm feeling like I'm doing chores all day long? If you're in that ideal space, how do you want to feel? How do you want to spend your time? How do you want to connect with your life? Go into that kind of mentality and look at your list of things to do. Is it all important? Of course it all is. Like, we decide what we think. We're doing this for other people. We're doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for our future. We're doing this because we're making up for our past. There's some kind of funkiness of all of that in there. So you decide which is aligning with your ideal life, the one that you really want, if you weren't doing it for all the get it done kind of reasons. I get caught up in the not wanting to. For example, I'm going to schedule these appointments on my lunch break, but instead I listen to a podcast. Thanks for being here. Because I just need to do something on my break that I enjoy since I'm working so hard. Okay, I love this. So my guess is you're not taking the time to schedule the things that are meaningful to you. This is the time. So by default, your lunch break is the time that you're doing the you time. And that doesn't feel as free as if you decide to do the you time. Now, if you didn't feel the monkey on your back of the scheduling appointments, then you'd feel delighted about the podcast you're listening to, right? So when can you decide, oh, I have a couple of minutes to schedule one appointment or the other one or whatever? When can I decide it's totally fine for me to listen to a podcast? Be in it. Whatever you're into, it's not because you need something, because you're lacking. So I just want to look at the wording of what you said. I'm going to schedule these appointments, but instead I listen to a podcast because I need to do something on my break because I'm working so hard. So I'm working hard, so I deserve time off. Now, listen, I back you up on that. Yes, you do. But you also deserve to not feel guilty about that. You also can connect to the part of you that's like, I like working hard because, right? I work hard because I like to feel good about what I'm accomplishing. I like to show up 100% no matter where I am. I like, and so go into those things. And I want my time off to be me. I just showed up 100% in these ways. Now I'm going to show up 100% in this way. So just to address the first part of your question, I get caught up in the not wanting to. That's okay. It's okay to not want to do the things you got to do. Whoever wants to schedule appointments? It always takes longer than you think it does. So it's okay to not want to. Just don't let that not wanting to infringe on your free time. Because when you avoid the things you got to do and you say, I need a break, then your break all of a sudden has a hint of guilt on the side. And I want your break to be so delicious because you're doing what you got to do. It's okay to not want it. It's okay. It's part of life, 50-50. You're going to love some things and you're going to not love some other ones. It's okay. It doesn't have to have any bearing. It is not something you're going to use to evaluate the task. Yeah, I hope that answered. Listen, we are at time. It always happens so fast. 30 minutes is adorable. I could do an hour class on this and would love it. If this piques your interest, if this is like, oh my gosh, I have all of those negative emotions and I don't know what to do with them, I would love to help you with this. Life coaching has been the gift of my life to work through all of these thoughts and all of these emotions. So come and schedule a consultation where we can work through what this would look like for you. The gift of looking at your thoughts, looking at your emotions, and seeing what is the life you are creating in that is the best thing that you can do. So I look forward to seeing however you got to here, send me a message, whether it's through social media, whether it's on YouTube. You can get my calendar or my email address from YouTube. You can send me a message on social media. You can send me a text if you've got my number, and let's spend some time and just see how we can take this to the next level for you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week.